Hey folks, this is Kalani. We've finally got Prepatch on live, so we're going to be having a look at the changes to Hunter, and specifically how to get the most DPS out of your Hunter with all of those amazing changes that have come to Marksmanship, mainly, because out of Beast Mastery, Marksmanship and Survival, Marksmanship still is top of the pack. It's still doing the most DPS, specifically the most DPS in the encounters that we have now, but it's also looking very good for Legion. So chances are, if you want to play Hunter, play Marksmanship, or get the most DPS out of your Hunter in general, you'll probably be playing a very similar spec and variation to what I'm going to show you right now. So I'm actually going to look at the talents first, because these change a lot about how Marksmanship Hunter works. So we've got Lone Wolf for that damage buff, Lock and Load for the free aim shots, Fast Strider, or Post Haste, depending on what you want to do. Basically, if you take Fast Strider, you have the chance to disengage multiple times in its normal cooldown, or Post Haste is just going to give you a movement speed buff. So if you need that extra movement speed, take Post Haste. If not, go for Fast Strider. Then we've got Patient Sniper. Now, you have a vulnerable debuff that you need to stack on your targets. This increases the damage of a lot of your abilities, and it stacks 3 times. What we've done is take Patient Sniper to change that stacking debuff into a single debuff, which is much stronger, 150% damage increase instead of the 75 after stacking it 3 times, but it only lasts for 6 seconds, and you need to extend the duration if you want to keep it up, and you can't stack it at all, so that's how that's working. Then we also take Binding Shot. This one, it doesn't really matter for this tier, it fully depends on what you need it for. Binding Shot is a good overall pick. Then we have Barrage. It's currently the most damage on this tier, and it's pretty much your most important ability actually, so that's kind of how crazy Barrage is right now. And then we're taking Sidewinders. So Sidewinders is the one which replaces Arcane Shot and Multi-Shot, and you have 2 charges, 11-second recharge, and it generates 50 focus, so it's a good chunk of focus whenever you use it, and it also applies that vulnerable debuff we were talking about. Now, usually that will be one of the stacks, but because we're using Patient Sniper, whenever you use Sidewinders, you automatically apply that 6-second debuff here, which is going to increase the damage of your other abilities by a crazy amount. So you can see how things start to work together. So as far as rotation and priorities go, we're going to be working around this vulnerable buff a lot, and we apply it using Sidewinders, and we refresh it using Mark Shot and Sidewinders. Now I've also got a proc to use Mark Shot, and we need it off our auto shots, and that's apparently a proc per minute, so we're only going to have a certain amount of them, and we need to make use of them. So it's typically going to be the first auto shot. And there we go, we got it. It's marking targets. And while Sidewinders will always apply vulnerable, this allows it to apply Hunter's Mark, which lets you use Mark Shot. Now, you want to use Mark Shot when your vulnerable buff gets down to 2 to 1 seconds, because you want to refresh it instead of reapply it, because that vulnerable buff increases the damage of Mark Shot. If you use it after it falls off, you lose damage on your Mark Shot, thus losing DPS. Now, the frustrating thing is that Barrage is actually a ridiculous amount of DPS, meaning that you need to use it on cooldown, which means you need to save enough focus, and you need to use your Sidewinders to get enough focus to make sure you can use it. And you're also standing around quite a bit, because you don't really want to aim shot if you don't have a vulnerable target, and you don't really want to use Sidewinders unless it's going to mark the target or it's getting to 2 charges. So you don't ever want it to hit the 2 charges, because obviously you're wasting charges then, but you want it to apply that Hunter's Mark to get your Mark Shot off, because if you don't, then you're wasting DPS, and if it procs when you don't have a Sidewinders ready to go, you're kind of waiting around for even longer. So the way that we're going to start out a fight is with our True Shot, our big cooldown, into Barrage, and then Sidewinders, aim shot, Mark Shot, aim shot, and then go from there. Typically you want to try and get 2 aim shots in on a vulnerable target and a Mark Shot. That's kind of the ideal situation. So True Shot, everything that you've got, trinkets, legendary ring, that's going to go with True Shot. You want to combo everything as much as possible, because this is our only damaging cooldown. This is the only DPS cooldown that we've got now. So let's pop that, go into Barrage, Sidewinders to apply vulnerable, get some aim shots off with a Mark Shot, and make sure we keep enough focus to be able to reapply that, and then go straight into aim shot, Mark Shot, and try to get another aim shot in there for the vulnerable buff, and then we need to go to Barrage, because that's come up, into a Mark Shot, because we didn't really have time for anything else, If you get lock and load procs, you need to get rid of those as quickly as possible, preferably with the vulnerable up. If you don't have the vulnerable up, you're kind of looking at a big DPS loss, so that's RNG in there as well. Back to the barrage. You might be able to squeeze in aim shot, mark shot after a barrage. You can, which is nice, but here's the problem that I have with it. You're just standing around if you don't get any of these procs, which is kind of sad, and I don't like standing around, especially on a hunter, which is supposed to be super fast-paced. That's actually really nice. You can barrage when you don't have the vulnerable, or where it just falls off. And that's it. It's actually quite simple. It's not a bad spec to play. It's definitely got some appeal. But it does feel a lot slower than what it used to be, and I still miss Killshot. And the way that the talents work right now, we're kind of pigeonholed into what to use, but that's more to do with balance than anything else. So that's how the rotation comes together. Let's have a look at stats. So we've only got a few stats to choose from now. Multi-strike's no longer on the board, and all that crit we've been gathering for the last year and a half is bottom of the table. Top of the table is mastery, because this has changed and we no longer have to stay still. It just increases the range of all your abilities and the damage of all your focus spending abilities. So you can see I only have 12% mastery, and that increase is already at 47%, which is ludicrous. Completely ludicrous. So you can see why that's top, and then haste to smooth out that focus regen so we don't have to wait too long, and later on we'll be hard casting aim shot as well, which just makes haste even more valuable. So that's how it's going with stats, and honestly we don't really have that much more to look at. I can talk about the problems of marksmanship in that you have automatic cleave, and your cleave is just godlike. But if you ever need to just DPS one target, that's going to be a problem. You can't really swap off a target which needs to be kind of still alive. So if you're told to swap off something, you may have to either turn around or just use your aim shots. Or for that fight, you're probably going to have to gimp yourself and take sidewinders away, which again is going to be a drastic DPS loss. So sidewinders kind of goes everywhere, and it's cleaving, and barrage, our number one ability, goes everywhere, as hunters already know. So first things first, try to position yourself nicely, because if your barrage goes off and pulls something which it shouldn't, you're going to get shouted at. If sidewinders goes off and pulls something you shouldn't, you're going to get shouted at, and you're going to make every hunter look bad, which none of us like being called huntards. So that's really the only problem with it, I'll be honest. The cleave is great, the single target is great, the AoE is actually fantastic. If you get the proc on your sidewinders and you hit a lot of targets, you can actually mark shot every single target. So even if you hit 8 targets with that sidewinders, you then fire off 8 mark shots, which is crazy. It's basically a barrage of mark shots, and in an AoE situation you want to get those mark shots off as quickly as possible and make sure that people don't die before you can get them off, because if you wait and something dies, that's going to be a huge chunk of DPS loss, and let's be honest, that's where we want to be. We want to be at the top of that DPS meter. So that's Marksmanship Hunter for 7.0, and that's how to get the most out of your Hunter for the current patch. Obviously when things go forward into Legion, we're going to get our artifact. That's going to change quite a bit, but it won't really change the rotation or priority system that we have right now. It's just going to increase our damage through the roof, which is really nice. Obviously, if things change talent-wise, which I hope they do, being pigeonholed into a talent selection really isn't nice, and this is really the only way you can play Marksmanship Hunter right now, which is frustrating to say the least. But hopefully those talents do change, we see competitive talents throughout the board, and we can actually have a variety of ways to play Marksmanship Hunter when Legion releases fully. But, I mean, I doubt it at this point, so we'll have to see. That's it for this video. If you have any questions or queries, please leave them in the comment section below and I'll try to get back to you. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always, I will see you next time.